We are CEOs, executives, educators, and professionals from all sectors of society who support the global expansion of betterment in the world through joy and JOYELY. I'm your host, Sheryl Lynn, founder of the Chair of Joy Experience. Together, we have developed the World Council of Joy, and our council invites CEOs and innovators from impactful organizations to the JOYELY podcast. We showcase how generous, bold, and fully engaged they are in their work and what a culture of joy is to them. I'm here with Jacqueline Way, and we are doing another version of the JOYELY podcast. And I couldn't be more excited about our guest today. I just want to do a quick update about what's going on here at the JOYELY studios. So as you know, we've been carrying this amazing, beautiful, big chair around the country.
It's a big chair. It's a big
We've
chair.
been to almost 40 cities, and we're super excited because we just booked the Boys and Girls Club and a chamber event this morning. And I know it's like not Jacqueline's level of success, but we've just been incorporated a short time, and it's super fun to see the opportunity working for people and measuring success based on them actually listening to us and sitting in the chair of joy on a regular basis. So welcome, Jacqueline Way, inspirational keynote speaker, top TEDx speaker. I watched your video again this morning. Completely amazing. Founder of Number 365 Give, and philanthropist. You live in Vancouver, California. What's the temperature?
No, Vancouver, Canada.
Canada.
Sorry. Yeah. We won't take the California down. There is a Vancouver.
Been
there
there.
Is. You guys have.
Been there to both. So Vancouver, what's the temperature today is my first question.
Oh, yeah. You know what? It's a typical fall Vancouver day. Little rain, might get a little splash of sun, but, cool and overcast.
Very cool.
We're out of our summer months, so we're definitely into that Canadian fall.
I love it. I feel the same here in Wisconsin. So anyway, I want to get right to the heart of things. And
let's do it.
Before I let you go into your a little bit about your bio and your background, tell me quickly where you got this phrase, happy children must mean happy adults, which obviously is a happy planet. Tell me a little bit more about that.
Yeah. Well, the reality is that, we can talk about happiness all we want, but happiness is something that comes from the inside. Research has shown this, science shows it, we talk about it, it's an inside job. Every possible quote, tile, Instagram post you can have, what we know as happiness comes from the inside. And when you can cultivate that happiness for yourself inside, that then flows out to everybody else. So literally, even if it's one person at a time, one person has that opportunity. I think I'm proof by the pudding that one person can affect 1 million people when they're coming from that place of happiness and giving love out to the world. That has the opportunity to affect millions, but it has to start with us, and it affects your family, it affects your community, and it spreads and ripples from there. So we always say happiness starts from ourselves first, and that's how we then effectively create change all over the world.
So I'm hanging my hat on your success because I'm following in your footsteps. You've been all over the world, and 365. Please update us as far as what's going on. First, explain to everybody a little bit about you, and then tell us about what 365 is doing these days.
Well, I love that you and I talk about joy and happiness so easily. And, for me, 365 Give is a charitable organization that I started with my son when he was just 3 years old. Never meant it to be a charitable organization by any means. It was actually a personal parenting project I started with my son when he was 3 because I wanted to cultivate in him kindness and happiness and love and compassion. And those are what I wanted his traits and his virtues to be throughout his life. And what we know about children is that the best time to teach them is between the ages of 0 and 5. Their brains are at their best, kind of forming all those beautiful neural pathways that they will hold and retain for the rest of their life. So we started this project. We did one thing to give back to the world every day for 365 days. We gave to animals, we gave to people, we gave back to the planet, and it had to be so simple a 3-year-old could do it. At the time, I had created what us people used to do. We used to have blogs, before everything else, before websites and Instagram and Facebook and all those great things. I think Facebook had just started. And so I created a blog around it, really just to share our stories with our family and friends. It was an easy way to kind of keep a personal journal. That blog still exists. You can go see my very first post. And from there, it grew, and people like started reading the blog. I started like doing little tweets when Twitter started, and I created a Facebook account. And so we started sharing our stories about our daily giving practice, and people from all over the world joined us. And then it grew, and then it became an educational program for children, and we went in that TED Talk, we talk about 25 schools that we had touched, which we thought was like tremendous at that time. And now it's like 450 schools globally, which is insane. And then we've expanded from there. We had thousands of families and individuals and businesses and community groups that have joined us as well. Because what we really talk, and the most important part of all, is that, giving back, we know it's important. Being kind, we know that's important. But what we didn't know at that time, and when I started this, is the profound impact this can have on an individual. And it can have impact on your health, your wellness, your well-being, your physical health, your mental health, and your personal happiness. And when you start to cultivate giving, we literally call it your daily dose of happiness, because it then allows you to use your body as this tool for happiness. We call it turning on your happiness switch. So dose literally stands for dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, and your endorphins. And these are all like your feel-good, love, happiness chemicals that run through your brain and your body, and it reduces your stress. Did I know all of this when I started? Absolutely not. It literally became my own personal happiness practice that we incorporated in our lives. And now we encourage others to incorporate in your life, because not only are you effectively changing the world and the people around you, the world around you, but you're changing yourself. And you're cultivating, I call it a mindful practice. You're cultivating your own intentional practice to activate love within inside yourself and activate it out into the world, because giving literally is love in action.
So the last time I saw you, you were sitting in your, on the beach, I think.
In my running gear, yeah.
Then you sent me a picture of your Tear of Joy, of you sitting in your backyard on the grass with your legs crossed, all phenomenal. So I just want to know you a little bit. So my first question, based on what you just said, is how old is your son now, and how is his cultivated kindness in the world showing up?
Mm-hmm. So my son is now, oh my goodness, his 14th birthday is tomorrow.
Oh my goodness.
That's how long it's been. His 14th birthday is tomorrow. So we've been, I had a little break in there because I had a couple, my children are all adopted. And so we had a little break in there. I had about a 2-year break where I wasn't doing 365 Give, or we weren't growing it from what it initially started it to be. So we had a little break with all the little children I had come home after that. Who is he now? And he's that person. He is, it's what everybody says about him. He's happy. He's kind. He's loving. He embraces everyone. It's the one thing everybody says about him. Doesn't matter listen, at 14, relationship with girls, all that stuff. His best friends are girls. His best friends are from every culture all over the world. He is what you would hope your child would be. And I have a son, and at that time when I started 365 Give, he now has a lifelong disability. It's a brain-based disability. He has a neural difference, which I didn't know when he was 3 years old and when I adopted, and all of those things. So for all of the challenges that life presents for him at different levels, he's still that human being. And we can still cultivate, and we still do cultivate that in him. He works a lot behind the scenes with 365 Give with me. He's not a in front of the camera kind of guy. And that's okay. I respect that. It's as he says to me, Mom, 365 Give is yours. And as I say to him, but without you, it would never have happened. Yeah. So he's inspired this in me. It will always be his. And as he grows and learns in his life, if he wants to run with it in any way, it will be his. It will be there for him to do that.
And how are you celebrating tomorrow?
How we celebrate, he wants a quiet birthday this year. So I'm actually we're having a couple of friends around as a surprise. He doesn't even know they're coming. A couple of his friends are going to come over. We have lots of rules and regulations around COVID in our area. So we cannot go dining out at the moment. So we're bringing his favorite restaurant home and just having some friends around. And we're just going to do the surprise because he can't decide what he wants to do. So that's what we're going to do. Being together is the best gift of all. So we're just going to be together and celebrate this day for him.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
I am so excited for him and you and, the friends that he gets to come over and celebrate with.
Exactly.
What a fun fun. I had 3 girls, so I totally love it.
Yeah. You know what? I'll put it this way. I'd rather have 3 boys right now than 3 girls right now.
Totally. So how many, not how many is the wrong question. My question is, with COVID and everything going on, I know you're doing a ton of stuff virtually, but are you finding yourself on platforms and stages and events coming up or booked, or what's happening, and how can we hear you?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you know what? I do podcasts like this all of the time. I do lives all of the time. I spend a lot of time as well on Clubhouse, talking a lot about happiness and well-being and giving there as well. So number of different places that speaking is my gig, right? Like it's my thing that I love to do. It's part of what I love in communicating with people. So I'm doing that nonstop. I'm in the process of writing a book. I've been waiting on the right inspiration. I've been approached to write the 365 Give story, which we could do, but I knew it was going to be much more than that. So the book is going to be really talking more about what you and I talk about, and that's happiness and joy, how to find that in your life, how to step into it, into your own life through lots of ways. Giving is not the only way to step into your own happiness, but you have to find it for yourself, and you have to cultivate it within yourself. And it's a practice every day that you have to work on. So that's the book that I'm working on right now. And yes, lots of fun things in the works. We're actually redoing the whole 365 Give platform at the moment, and we're creating a new e-learning platform for people so that we can really teach about the well-being and the happiness and the science of giving, which is a really big, important component that we talk a little bit about it on our website now, but we actually want to create a whole e-learning around it, because people need to understand the importance that how we need to take care of ourselves from the inside out, and as many tools as we can give them to do that. And giving is such an important one.
So navigating the world through joy and or happiness is exciting. It's an exciting time right now. That's what I'm learning.
I'd love for people to know the difference between happiness and joy, because you and I had this conversation a little bit already when we had our day on the beach, because there is a difference between
you were
happiness.
On the beach.
I was on the beach. I was in my happy place. You and I talked about the difference between happiness and joy. And so I'm going to turn it around for a minute. What's the difference for you between happiness and joy?
So you taught me something that day. So I love what you said, where we're meeting happiness, where people are. Happiness is the thing that we have a lot, right? All day long, we find moments of happiness and we accumulate them, and they become bigger and bigger and bigger. And I think that's what develops a state of joy. And it's not something that people can have in their life as a constant. It comes and goes and ebbs and flows. But every successful human being that I've talked to knows what it means to intentionally focus and attract more of it on a daily basis, really moment by moment. So there's a lot more to it than that, but that's my overarching view of happiness and joy. So it's not one versus the other. It's that it's all inclusive.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, no, and I think it's an important thing for people to recognize as well. And I think it's the importance of your work that you do is helping people. It's that joy is that state of being, whereas happiness does ebb and flow. It's the emotion of joy that goes up and down. It's not something that we keep consistently all day, every day, but joy is that beautiful thread that's like that underlining vibration that just runs through us once we cultivate it and we know it's there. So, I think that's such an important understanding for people, not between the difference between what we do, but how we grow it in people. And it's a big part of what I've learned from you as well, because, I never quite got the difference, but understand it so much more now because I've focused on happiness for myself, which has cultivated that state of joy, that state of being of joy in my life as well.
Thank you for that.
Sorry to interrupt you, but that was important. I want people to understand that, because both those words are thrown around a lot, and there's not always a full understanding of that.
Absolutely. And I would like to even escalate that conversation even more by saying that joy is something that people sort of think of as a Christmas joy or birthday party joy or something that's kind of out there and for other people and sort of get it mixed up. So joyely is becoming its own word. So I look at it as an elevated conversation to live joyily or joyily ever after, or in a place that's not just something that we yearn for or strive for, but that we can make it a daily habit, and that we can create a lifestyle around joyful living. So living joyily is sort of our lifestyle. And, you've got the blue and white world and I've got the yellow and white world. And together, I think that makes green, which is absolutely fine. So.
No, I love that. I love that. No, and it's important because the more we're stepping into people understanding all elements of happiness and joy and love at a more conscious level. And as we see that evolution happening in our world with information being so available to people, it's important that people understand all of the differences and the different ways of looking at joy and happiness.
I don't think that we can get enough reminders. I mean, I need the reminder every single day, all day long. That's why I created the Chair of Joy, because it's an anchor for me. It's like, oh, right. I have to sit down and get away from this computer thing. Like this is all consuming. And I think it is for a lot of people, and the news and the media and everything else that's going on in our culture, in our world, our kids, our family, our communities. I signed up for this and I committed and volunteering. Let me go on and on. But, it's like there's got to be an interrupter or a disruptor, right? To tap into the neural pathways that you talked about, which is, just get a different vibration going and escalate it so that you can have more of all it is that you dream of.
Yeah, absolutely.
So beautiful, 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 Jacqueline. What is coming up next that you're super excited, other than a full, updated website and a new book? What else is coming up for us that we need to know about you?
There you go. Other than that, you know what? I'm more of the constant girl. I'm not the big things coming up. We have big things coming down the road, but I don't have one main thing that launching in the next 3 months or anything along that lines. So
you're going about your days being you. And what was your Clubhouse name again? I'm sorry, I didn't write it down.
I'd say it's Jacqueline Way. Yeah, you can find us. You can find me at 365 Give on Clubhouse.
At 365 at Clubhouse. Okay, great. Yeah. And didn't you have a conversation with Neil Donald Walsh or something?
Oh yeah, no, I just did. Actually, that one's coming up now. So it's something called the Oneness Summit. Neil Donald Walsh is a favorite author of mine. He wrote the books Conversation with God. And so I very much play in that spiritual, world and realm with lots of different people. So coming up in October is the Oneness Summit. And I don't have the dates right in front of me. The Oneness Summit is really cool because people like Neil Donald Walsh, but any possible spiritual guru that you may follow, they are if you've ever read the book, The Secret, every guru that was in that book will be also at the Oneness Summit talking about consciousness. So I'm doing a conscious parenting panel for that summit, which is pretty exciting. Still all being done remotely rather than in person. I think the world is still going that way. So that one's coming up in October. So I'm really excited because I haven't done a lot around conscious parenting, but really what we teach is conscious parenting. It's helping your kids become very mindful. It's creating a practice for them every day. It's helping them understand their emotions and where they're at and how they're feeling. And that's the beauty about Giving for Everyone, is that it gives you a practice. You can call it a mindful practice. You could call it a spiritual practice, whichever way you like, but it all falls within that world.
So you have a huge passion for children, it sounds like. So where did that come from? And what can you kind of envision when, I know you talked a little bit about this being your legacy, or your legacy is in the moment. So what is it that you see 365 doing in the future? So about children, where'd that come from, and 365 in the future?
Yeah.
Finally, a better way to hold your phone. Introducing Steady Straps. Made here in the USA, Steady Straps are high-quality, flexible straps that adjust to hold virtually any phone comfortably and securely. Steady Straps are washable and come in a wide range of colors and styles. See them all at steadystraps.com. Because they're so visible, they're the perfect promotional item to advertise your company message or logo. Learn more at steadystraps.com. That's steadystraps.com.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I'm like many people that in my 30s, I went, oh yeah, I got to do that parent thing. And I was ready to become a mom. I, like many women these days, was not able to have my own children. So we decided to go to the adoption route, which had always been, I was that person who always said I'd run an orphanage, and so literally I got one, which was a beautiful process. I literally go, it started with 2 dogs and it grew from there. And an amazing experience. I mean, I think the greatest thing about being a parent, and if you don't know this about your kids, you need to start looking at your children differently. Your children are a mirror reflection of what you need to learn about yourself. So they are a gift for us this way. We think we're supposed to be the parents and teach them everything, but really the opportunity is the opposite way around, is how can you look at your children and what do you need to learn by what's showing up in your world and what your kids are teaching you. So I'd always wanted to be a teacher, but not a teacher in schools. School was never my thing. So 365 Give is the perfect opportunity for me to go and teach as young as, I've been in preschools as young as, children as young as 3 and 4, and I've been up to university level. So I get to teach across the board. I've taught seniors, literally. So the beautiful thing for me on 365 Give is I get to fulfill what I always knew was kind of inside of me to teach. I get to teach that across multiple levels with everyone that I come in contact with, and the talks that I do or the keynotes or whatever it is. And with the children, we get to do it in project-based learning. So we get our hands dirty and, we build bird feeders out of pine cones, right? and honey. So I get to teach at a very grassroots level in a way that honestly works for me. And I wish I had been taught it. So we're really trying to change the cultures in schools and how we can use project-based learning and teach kids a different way of looking at learning. So that's one of the big things for us. And down the road, if we can expand this even further at a global level, that's, even though we're in schools all over the world, we want to be able to translate this. We want to be able to make this accessible for every child to learn. We're getting to the point where every child has a device in their hands for learning. And that's the gift of COVID. I see so many gifts of COVID, obviously not for the lives lost or the people that have gotten sick, but the gift that now more and more children have technology in their hands to enhance their learning, and they're learning to teach themselves in different ways. And so that's been one of the gifts of COVID. And that's what we want to also help with, is that kids can go in and learn how to do this themselves, or they can learn to go in and do it through a classroom situation.
So do you think over the years that this topic has been approached, or what is different about what is showing up with you guys?
Right. Yes, I think that we're starting to see it. In schools, they call it social emotional learning now, SEL learning. In the States, they also have another version of it as well for older kids at high school level. There's obviously kindness programs as well. What the big differences is between what we do and what, let's say, a Random Acts of Kindness, and I know the Random Acts of Kindness Foundation very well, and the people that run it. The difference, I would say, between what we do and what they do is that we know that not everybody has the capacity for the kindness to someone else. Sometimes that's challenging for some people. So what we always say is that it's inclusive of everything. So be kind to another person, be kind to a stranger, or could you give to an animal? Could you give to our planet? So we have just broadened the spectrum of what kindness is, which people think it's just being kind to another person. Yeah. Whereas we're like, let's give back all across the board. Let's include compassion in that. Let's include gratitude in that. Let's include kindness in that. So kindness is just part of the bigger umbrella that we fit under. And we look at giving as just a broader spectrum of what it all is tied together, and how you can expand the way that you look at giving back to the world. It just doesn't have to be a human being, but any living sentient being on our planet, including our planet.
That's awesome. And I think that it is just an awareness of like, man, I never thought about that before, but here's all these incredible ideas and maybe I can do that. And it's really, really simple to do.
Absolutely. We go like, how are you giving back to the bees, right? Are you planting flowers? Which then, it's that whole teaching approach that when you plant flowers in your garden, you're not only giving back to the planet, but you're giving back to the butterflies and the bees. And it's that way of teaching the oneness and how we're all connected in our world, which is sometimes times a missing piece. And that's what we love about what we do. Or when you're teaching kids about going and doing a beach cleanup, we're not just teaching about going and doing a beach cleanup, we're teaching them about how we're connected to when we do that beach cleanup, we're helping the salmon. And it's like, okay, who's eating fish, people? When you're doing a beach cleanup, you're actually helping yourself. Right. So it's how all of our actions in our world are all interconnected, and how people can start to see us as what we talk about, how we are all interconnected on this little ball that we live in the universe, you know. And when we look at ourselves as sharing one planet, being connected via our one planet, you know, we're hoping to change that perspective of how we interact with each other in the world. It doesn't matter where you live, because you know what? If I plant a tree in my yard, that's affecting you in Africa over on the other side of the world, because I'm cultivating oxygen and carbon dioxide in my little garden in my backyard, but that's affecting the whole planet, right? So it's teaching the bigger scale of how we're all interconnected.
I'm curious from a business perspective, how you are measuring this for people, especially teachers, parents and superintendents and those with the powers that be. Like, is there algorithms in place, or is there some sort of tool that you measure success, or how many people have gone through the program? Anything?
Yeah, I mean, the great thing is that our program is all web-based, so we can track and measure all of that and who's using our program and the success of that. It's also why we want to broaden more into an e-learning, so we can use even more of those metrics, because you know it's the challenge with any charitable organization. Everybody wants numbers, right? I can't say that for every dollar you donate to us, I'm feeding 3 homeless people, right? It's a different dynamic. But what we do know based on science and research is that every time one person does one act of giving, it actually affects 3 people. Okay. So that's the ripple effect of what we do. When we are cultivating happiness in one person, same thing, that's cultivating happiness in every person that person is touching. So for example, if I am cultivating giving in one person over the course of their lifetime, we effectively will be in contact with anywhere from, I think the number is 30,000 to 150,000 people in our one lifetime. So when I'm cultivating happiness and giving in a child in kindergarten, I am effectively, over the course of their lifetime, when we're growing and cultivating that in that child, that's touching that many people over the course of their lifetime. Listen, we look at me, okay, and who would have known I would have done I would have had a charitable organization, a TED Talk, all of the things that we've done that now has effectively touched millions of people all over the world. You can't make that. You just don't know that stuff, right? You just can't make that stuff up. But the more we can cultivate that in every person across a life cycle, because that's what we do. We cultivate this across an entire life cycle of a human being, that we know that we are cultivating that not only in that person, but everyone that they touch. And that's how we create a paradigm shift in our world. And it's not just me doing it, it's what you're doing as well, right? You're creating that paradigm shift in others as well with the work that you're doing. So when we have enough people spreading the same message, that's how we create massive shift in our world, right? Massive
how would you
shift.
say we're there on that scale, on a scale of 1 to 10, when you say when we have enough people? Like, are we close to having enough people? It seems like we have a conversation, a strong conversation happening in the world right now, that people are on the train and people are hearing it. And I'm knowing that my impact can touch 150,000 people. And I think
and beyond, you're going to go so far,
so
far beyond that, right?
And children are understanding it. So tell me, on a scale of 1 to 10, this is just a straight up question. I'm curious.
Absolutely. It's a great question. I love that question. You know what? I'd say we are at a tipping point right now. I think on the scale, we are at a 5. We are literally, if this was a seesaw right now, and one side is going to tip us into disaster and the other side is going to tip us into creating what we dream of, a happy, healthy, peaceful world. I think we're sitting on that middle point right now, and we all have this choice that we have to make. Which way do we want this to go?
Absolutely.
And that's all of us, because what we know is our leaders are not going to take us there, right? The leaders of the world are not going to tip us in the direction that we all want to go, right? So we all have to make that choice as an individual. It's what we do and what we cultivate, because we know that every time we cultivate an individual, they have the power to go make the impact and a choice for themselves. So if we have enough people and that are cultivating happiness, joyful living, healthy living, well-being, creating more understanding, spreading that message more on every algorithm. So this is using social media, using YouTube, using podcasts, using every possible means that we can to create that tipping point going the other way. We've got it. And I think that we've got it. I think that we're at a point where the world has gone so sideways that there's only one way to go, and that is we're choosing health. We're going to choose happiness. We're going to choose a better way to live our lives, not just for ourselves, but everybody around us. So even though we share one planet, I believe we all live on our own little planet. You know, we all live in our own little individual world, and we can choose how we're going to cultivate that individual world, which includes our families, and it includes our communities, it includes our neighbors, and then our reach beyond that as well. Listen, everybody has that opportunity on social, right? I don't care if you have 300 followers on social media. You could be using that as an opportunity to spread and change the way people look at the world and what shows up in your feed. You can be posting positive messages, even if they're just positive messages versus negative messages. That's tipping the scale to positivity versus negativity.
Just curious if you've ever said tipping the scale sort of an analogy before today.
You know what? The funny thing is that I use a seesaw. So when we're teaching kids, we use something called an emotional seesaw that we use with 365 Give. So we use that seesaw for helping them understand emotions and how they can use their emotions one way or another. You know, we use it actually as the tipping point of, you know, you can go to anger, fear, you know, on one side of the scale, and then you can tip it the other way, where calm is in the middle, and then happiness and excitement, you know, it's on the other end of the scale as well. So it's a great way to teach children, and using that seesaw mode. But the conversation is out there right now, right? That everybody says we're at a tipping point right now. So to me, it was the first thing that came into my mind was the seesaw of, okay, which side of the stick you going to choose, right? And I think we all have that seesaw, the emotional seesaw for ourselves, which way we can choose. And it doesn't matter what your political views are, any of those things. You don't have to be an angry political person. You can be happy where you are and what your choices are, you know, to go off being angry about it, you know, or, you know, an angry COVID person, whichever, vaccinated, unvaccinated, masked, unmasked, you don't have to show up in that angry place, right? We can come to a place of peace. The people that have had the most influence in the world are the people that have changed the world through peace, not the people that are trying to change the world through a place of anger. It never works.
So many things in there to unpack. I'm just, so I get a lot. I don't hear it, but there's a lot of people who get something from being super angry. And so we get sick, unfortunately. It's called how we create disease, right? That's how we create disease in our life. Stress creates disease in our own personal life. And that's part of the choice that you're making, is you're not just making a choice of, I'm going to be angry and I'm going to make a lot of noise about it, but you're choosing an unhealthy lifestyle for yourself. And when people start to understand the effects that stress has on not only our mind and our emotions, but how stress has so much effect on our bodies. And you dig into that, stress causes cancer. You want to know the truth? Stress causes cancer. So that's the choice that you get to make in your life is, you know, do I want to live in a place of high stress, high fear, high anger? Great, no problem. You want to do that? Just know you're going to have an unhealthy life. And when we're talking about cultivating joy as you do and happiness in our life and having a happy life, being stressed and angry doesn't cultivate that. It doesn't cultivate it for you. And then guess what our kids learn from us? I talk about this in my TED Talk. You know, what are our children learning from us? They watch us, right? Even from the time that they're born, they're watching us. They feel the energy that's coming off our body. They feel and they hear the stress that's in our voice or the anger that's coming off of us. What are you teaching your children? Right? And that's the world that we get to live in, is we keep teaching our children. We're programming them at a young age. So what are you teaching your children? Are you teaching them
happiness? Are you teaching them love? Are you teaching them how to not be completely freaked out, stress in their life? Or are you teaching them the other side of the stick? And you have to look at yourselves. That's why I say our kids are our best teachers, because when your kids turn around and they're living in anxiety and stress and yelling back at you, what have you taught them? It's that simple. It happens to me. My kids yell back at me. I'm not the perfect parent. I have taught it to my kids as well. And now I'm there's parts of me that is trying to unteach it to my children, right? I'm not saying I'm the perfect parent, and I haven't done it as well, but that's what you can look at. If your kids are yelling and screaming and they're anxious and they're stressed and they're, coping in ways that we don't understand, just take a look at your own life and what are you teaching them?
Yeah. And I think that's part of why the Chair of Joy had to start as well, is because I walk around all the time. And not only am I doing what I can intentionally to sustain my own joy, but I'm noticing just in my visual, my peripheral, walking down the street, for example, just this heaviness and this sometimes like, oh my goodness, if I could be anywhere else in the world, I'll choose that. Right. And really people, for everyone listening today, and there's a lot of people chatting and talking to me, and they love the butterfly and the flitting around and the tipping point and everything you're saying today. So if you could say something to people about just wherever you are, like, let's get to it. If we're not finding our happiness or our joy, we're missing out on living life. Right?
Literally. Yeah.
Please share.
Yeah. So you know what? I'll share this story with everybody because I think everybody can understand this. I remember when we first went down into lockdown for COVID, and, we all became homeschool parents, and our jobs, all of a sudden we had to figure out a space in our home. We were going to have an office and everything else. We couldn't really leave our homes. Everybody was in a panic. The whole world was in a state of stress. I mean, we were watching the news, consuming it as much as we could. And I started at home. I was going to be that good homeschool parent. I could do this. I started Happy School at home, had all these projects lined up. Well, that lasted for 2 weeks. And then I was so done. And listen, I'm the woman who talks about happiness, right? I teach kids, all that stuff. And after 2 weeks, I was done. And after 4 weeks, at about 4:00 with my, gin and tonic at my desk, sitting in front of my computer, not being able to work, going, holy crap. What the hell happened to me? I was going to be the Happy School. The kids are all on their devices playing games. I couldn't wait till 4:00 every day because it was okay, this is, and I sat there and I went, oh my God, what's making me happy right now? And I couldn't answer that question. And I was like, I'm not sure I can go what makes me happy. I couldn't do the things that I loved. So for example, for me, I could still do my work to a certain extent, but not to where I wanted it to be. I couldn't go do talks. I couldn't go teach in classrooms anymore. I couldn't do all of those things. But I went, okay, if 365 Give wasn't there, what actually makes me happy, right? So if my work wasn't there, what else makes me happy? I couldn't answer that question. So I decided to cultivate for myself and my family, or for my kids, something called a happiness toolbox, because I needed to dig deep and go, okay, how can I turn that happiness switch on for me? Now, one of the things I knew for sure was giving. So one of the things I started doing was go giving in my community. We started doing things like we painted happy rocks to go in the front of our house so that when people walked by, they got their moment of joy just seeing things that we did. We started going and making meals for seniors around our neighborhood, but we can't do that all day, every day. So what were some of the other things that I started doing? Well, I realized one of the things I love doing is being out in my garden. So every day I started a routine for myself. Before I even got out of bed, I started cultivating gratitude. So before I even got out of bed, oh my God, I just started saying, thank you. Thank you for another breath. Thank you for another day. Thank you for this beautiful pillow that I get to sleep on. Thank you for, I can hear the birds singing in my garden. I would get up before, as soon as my feet hit the ground, I would put my favorite music in my ears that just made me happy listening to it. And then I would go walk out in my garden, even if it was 5:00 in the morning and still dark. I'd go walk out in my garden. I'd start talking to the flowers, just thanking the flowers for just opening. So I started creating this happiness habit for myself. I started creating a box where I could put all of these tools in it so that I knew no matter where I went in my day, I would have these things I could draw from that made me happy. Going for a walk made me happy. I was allowed to do that during COVID. I started creating an algorithm on every single social feed that I have. So my phone now is literally filled with algorithms that when I turn on my YouTube, the only thing that's going to come up for me are things that I know create happiness for me. So that might be listening to America's Got Talent, it's one of my favorite shows. Oh, they all come up on my phone. It might be listening to my favorite spiritual gurus and wisdom people. It might be listening to Oprah. Oprah's always on my algorithm. So I created everything in my world so that no matter where I went, only happy things for me were coming up. But I had to find that for myself. And that was the big one. And I encourage people to sit yourself down and go, what makes me happy? And if you can't answer that question, start creating things around you in your life that you know will bring you happiness. Because that creates that underlining thing that you and I talk about, or that you talk about, which is joy, right? It's that underlining thread that even if you're having a bad moment, you can still find the underlining thread, that ripple of joy that's buried underneath everything. You can start going and turning your happiness switch on for yourself, learning how to use your body as a tool to flip it on, so that on the really bad times in your life, it's like, oh, hold on, I got 20 things in my happiness box, or your chair of joy, that I can go and use to get me out of my rut, to get me out of where I'm stuck, and start turning that happiness switch on again, so that you can start turning things around in your life. And that's the big one for me that I found, and that I looked at COVID as such a gift for me, that I started to hit a bottom low. And when you hit that bottom low, it's like, okay, my happiness toolbox, where is it? Because I'm going to switch on every happiness tool I got in my life to get me out of this rut. And that's all it is. And it's the ebbs and flows, and recognizing you're not always going to be in like a high, state of happiness, but always knowing all the tools you have to make more evenness in your life. So you've got that underlining joy always running through, and knowing how to switch on your happiness switch at different moments throughout your day. Beautiful. And you don't get stuck. You don't get stuck in anxiety, and you don't get stuck in stress, and you don't get stuck in that rut. And you notice that rut when you're in it and going, oh, get out my happiness toolbox. It's time to start flipping those switches.
Jacqueline, last question, but first of all, I just want to absolutely thank you and wish you that I'm so excited for your future. You are such an eloquent speaker. You have,
thank you.
You can tell you've studied so hard, and you're so passionate, and the results that you're creating are so welcomed. Let's end it here about supporting our world, our people, our communities, right? So for me, the Chair of Joy has a whole ecosystem around it, much like the 365. And I welcome everyone to go to our enrollment page. And
your programs are amazing, by the way. It's like, go see them, everybody. The wealth of knowledge that you're teaching, all of it, like, it just, you amaze me. So stop saying I amaze you, because you amaze me and what you're creating, because this is just the beginning of so much that's going to be so phenomenal.
Yes, it's a 30-year plan. Like, I remember the day that I sat in my chair of joy, and I was like, something magical happened a few minutes after I did the process without knowing it was a process or a system or anything. And so, yes, so I like to offer, if people pay attention and really understand what Jacqueline is saying, where if we're not finding our happiness and our joy, what are we doing, right? Let's create the magic, and let's have support in it. And I'm here to support you 100%. Jacqueline, my last question to you is, how can people who are listening today get support from your organization?
Absolutely. Our programs are free for everybody. So you can just go to 365give.ca. That's our Canadian signature. And you can sign up as a member. We have a number of ways. If you just want, one of the things that we do is we actually will drop a giving idea into your email box every day if you want. Most of our members love that. So you can sign up for your daily giving idea. You can sign up as a member and join. Our programs are there and easy to get everybody going, but also know that they're going to be evolving exponentially over the next 6 months, and be even more interactive for people to be part of. And like I said, we really want to teach the science of giving, the understanding of your well-being, the understanding of how to turn on that happiness switch for yourself. Because when you make, we all want to, I think that's a big part people are missing. And I think this is a lot about what you talk about too. It's we want our lives to have meaning and purpose. So create that. That's what it's all about. You can go through life, and at the end of your life go, what did I do? Or instead you could say, I created a meaningful life. If you're looking at your life from the back end, start at the end and work forward. What do I want my tombstone to say about me? And what was the impact that I created in the world around me? It doesn't have to be global. What was the impact I created in my own little world and the people in my life and my world?
Oh my gosh, Jacqueline. Thank you so very much for being here and for sharing stories and for, I think, what you provide for me and others is just hope and possibility.
Never ending, right?
It's never ending. And I would like for everyone to take a seat in Jacqueline and I's world at some point, somewhere along the line, and get involved in an event. So, Jacqueline,
Absolutely.
What a privilege to have you here. Thank you so very much.
Thank you so much. And everybody who joined us today, thank you so much. Namaste. I wish you a happy, beautiful day on purpose.
This podcast is a part of the C-Suite Radio Network. For more top business podcasts, visit c-suiteradio.com.